Now I'm going to select this, do a edit cut, and then go back to the mask layer. In fact, let's just get rid of this temp layer right now. Go back to the mask layer, unlock it, and then do an edit, paste in place. Now that pasted this all the way back to the start of the mask layer, back in frame 1. So I will do a Command Z to undo that. Make sure I'm clicking at this blank keyframe here, and then do it again. Edit, paste in place. There we go. Now, if we lock the mask and the masked layer and scrub the playhead through here, we should see that we now have exactly what we want. Keep in mind we can't see it here when we preview the video, but there comes the craft. It looks like it's going behind the tree, looks like it's going right in front of him, and so on. Okay, so I want to introduce you to, and we're going to be doing a lot of this, so I want to kind of take it in small steps. I want to introduce you to the fact that a symbol, in this case we'll concentrate on the symbol of this little craft here, and symbols can have their own timeline. So if we go to the library and we'll click on the craft here, and then double click right there to bring it up in its own little environment. And just to refresh your memory, we already talked about the fact that when you go in to edit a symbol, now would be the time that if you made some major change to the symbol, that actually edits the symbol itself, and that would take place anywhere you use that symbol. But not only that, but in here you see, and you probably somewhat ignored it up until now, there is indeed a timeline in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this layer craft, so that'll be the craft itself. I'm going to make a new layer, and what I want to do is just make it look like there's a window in here that's maybe blinking. So what I'd like to do is make this light look like it's on for half a second. So I'll extend that frame I just drew for half a second, put in a blank frame here, and extend that out for another half second. And then the nature of timelines is for them to just repeat. So as long as I extend the craft out, what we should see is this will be on for a half second and off for a half second. So now let's go ahead and preview that. And as you recall, we need to get back to the main scene over here. So this breadcrumb trail shows us that we're into the craft. So we'll just click over here until we get back to the main scene. And then with everything locked again here, we should be able to scrub the playhead and see what's happening here. And you can see that it's off, then it'll come back on here. So that was achieved. Now that this animation is getting a little bit longer, for testing purposes and also for future use, if we want to use this to learn how to do something, it would be nice to be able to jump to different sections of it and have a little bit of organization. So let's work towards that end. So first thing we want to do is put like little section dividers, little visual dividers that indicate that here's the new thing. So let's do that for each one. So first we've got to get in front of here to push this out so we have room for that. So let's pop this one open, because that's where everything is at the beginning, was under this folder here that we named guide. So let's go ahead, drag across here. We'll do a couple of F5s, and then we will take these and we'll move them ahead by 2, because that's what we did there. So now we have some blank space in here. So if we go back here, there'll be nothing, starts there. So in this blank area is where we'll make some kind of signage. So I pasted this in from the grade sheet, set it to Helvetica New, size 75 points, color red, paragraph centered. Now if I want to make sure that this is centered in here, here's an easy trick to do that. You just grab it, do a Command X to cut it, double click on the hand tool, and then Command V, paste it in place. Now we need to push this about a second, I'm guessing. We can always look back later and see if maybe that was going too fast, but I need to see all of this, so I just going to click and drag up in here, make sure that I'm seeing all of my layers, and then I'm just going to swipe down. Something selected there, so let me click away, and then I'm just going to do a click and a drag down here, and then we will hit F5 enough times so that this stuff here doesn't start till about frame 20. And then let's make this text disappear where our animation starts to begin. And having previewed that, it looks like it goes by a little bit too fast to actually read what's happening there. So click and a shift click and a couple F5s. Let's try 30. Yeah, I think that'll do. So now let's repeat similar in between all of the other animations. I think I'm done with the guide, so I'll make that back into a folder to get myself a little more screen real estate here. And so our next is where we switch between the easing, and it does look like I did create a little bit of overlap there. So let's fix that. We can either push this one forward or bring the other one back, but since it makes more sense just to work here, do a couple F5s here. Okay, so that's good. Just goes from one animation right to the other. Now we just need to push this down and put in our dividing text. So what makes sense to me here is we need to at least get this for now at least one more frame away, and then in here where it says text, I can go ahead and put an F7 and then paste my text in. And then we just need to extend this out 30 frames to match what's happening at the beginning. And it looks like we're at frame 99 here, so plus 30 would be what, frame 129? That seems pretty good. And if we drag the playhead, we'll see we go from that to that, which is harsh, but we'll work on something for that a little bit later. And then it seems like I should have pushed this forward at the same time, but I can always come back and take care of that now. Just make sure these line up on the same frame, 130 and 130, perfect. And then when we go from easing to the topic of masking, let's do a little bit of house cleaning there. You can see the word ease out is still there, so that should stop right here. So let's go ahead and put a F7 there. Also, even though it doesn't matter because it's covered up, the auto is still there. It just makes it confusing later on when you go to troubleshoot and stuff, like why is there animation here? So we can just go ahead and do a F7 there. We can even clean up the keyframes by clicking on that one, shift clicking on that one, doing a shift F5, and there everything's nice and clean, a little bit easier to read. So right from here to here, in fact right there, is where we would want our next text. Well, actually right here makes the most sense. So let's just go ahead and grab this whole chunk right here, slide it forward one, and then let's go ahead and put our new text there. And we want that to show up again for 30 frames or a second and a half. So that'd be from 240 to 270. Then we would want this to show up. So once again, I can just grab all that, move it down there. So looks like we got what we need there. So it appears to me like this goes by a little bit too fast to really emphasize what masking is when it's played at actual speed. So why don't we just emphasize it a little bit more by bringing the craft back in. And I'll just, go a certain amount of frames later. A lot of times you hear me talk about 1 second later, 2 seconds later, but what really matters is the right feel for it depending on your animation. So sometimes it just pays to just make a guess, and then you can always go back and adjust it later. I'm going to extend these out, but what I'd like to do is from here to here is have the craft come back in. So I'm going to right click and put a classic tween in there, go to my last keyframe, move it back. Why aren't you letting me select you? Oh, because you're locked. That's why. And maybe we'll turn the masking eyeball off. And let's just bring this right here. And then, so it comes back like that. And why don't we put an ease out on that? So it kind of looks like it breaks into position here. And then we'll make it get really big to really emphasize what is and isn't masked. So from here to about here, do another F6, another classic tween. Right here, we'll grab this with the transform tool. I'm going to hold down the shift key, and we'll just go ahead and make that much bigger. And then we will extend things out a bit with another F5, and I'll preview that. And just a reminder that the text that we use in here, at least up until now, has been static text. And also, now that we've got some organization going here, wouldn't it be nice if we just had this animation come up, present itself, stopped, and then we could pick from a menu which one of these we wanted to see. So let's work towards getting there. So first thing we'll need to do is give us yet another little area here. So we'll click this first frame, do an F5, grab this, bring it forward. That gives us a blank keyframe there. All of the rest of this from here, since there's nothing there, can be taken care of. In fact, all of it. From down here, even, nothing exists right away. So all we have to do to catch up here, for now, is just an F5. Now everything is back to normal, and then we can go ahead here and this keyframe, and we'll go ahead and we will paste that information in. And let's get a hold of this with the regular selection tool and just bring that in. And since it's set to center, however, we're probably going to have to make this a little bit smaller, the text in here, because we also need room for a menu. So I'm going to swipe across all that and probably go back to 50. And I think that should work pretty nicely. And that's perfect that this only occupies one frame. In other words, goes by in the blink of an eye. But we're going to learn in the next movie how to make this stop here. And we're also going to learn how to put some buttons in here that will jump us to the items that we're interested in looking at in the future.